All right, Tim, thanks so much for joining the Brew Better Show. Very excited to be back and to have you. When we thought about having episode 1 and starting up again, first person that came to mind, just getting to be a part of the journey through, starting cafes kind of together at the same time and running and visiting and supporting each other. Still remember in the holidays where we kept sending people to each other because we were both busy working on our cafes. It's like, no, sorry, we're under construction. Go to Soteria.
That was a shame. I actually felt really bad. There was a guy who rocked up and we were inside and we had just put in the neon Soteria sign. And I think he just thought, oh, great. And walked through, came in, and we were almost done. And I don't know, maybe he just assumed. And he came in and spoke to me, and I was like, look, bro, sorry, we're still we're in the last. I know it looks like, almost done, but we're still busy. And then he's like, no, but I see the machine's there. Can't you just make me a cup? I'm like, listen, don't worry. He's like, oh, but you're one of the only places he's specialty coffee in Somerset. It's like, no, just go to Desiree. It's fine over there. And then, I found out that you had sent him to me, which was hilarious. So,
crazy times, man.
Goodness.
But I thought let's maybe just take it back to the beginning. So obviously the first time that I met you was actually in our old cafe, Desiree.
Yes, yeah.
You were busy studying theology, and Nate was there as well at the same time, and he obviously knew you. And at that time, you were literally still talking about potentially working a little bit in coffee, maybe as a barista, or opening your own place, like kind of contemplating. And I remember, I actually don't know if you know, but I actually asked Josh for your number because we had a manager position opening to run the cafe.
Damn.
And I was like, damn, maybe Tim would be perfect for that.
Damn.
And then when I reached out, he's like, oh, he's opening his thing. I was like, oh, wow, crazy. But just take us back from there, like kind of wrestling between the two and how you got to opening your first one.
Yeah. I think the short of it is I just took the plunge in the end. I remember that day sitting and chatting to you guys and Nate, and that was the first time I think I was actually had come to Desiree. So my kind of coffee journey started when I was in Oz. So I was studying in Oz for a while, and I fell in love with coffee there. And I never really, I don't know, South Africa, you got, I guess growing up in Somerset West, didn't really go to Cape Town a lot, so I didn't have that exposure to a lot of specialty coffee shops or different brewing methods, or just things that I think actually awakened that passion inside of me. So when I went to Oz, I actually started serving on the coffee team there at the church. And I just fell in love with the way that they got so specific with everything, from weighing the coffee to weighing the yield to the certain temperature of the coffee, all those kinds of things. So that was kind of like the start of it for me. And then I worked there for a little bit at a cafe in Oz. And then when COVID hit, I came back, and I was actually originally in Oz for studying theology, came back and continued online. And that's when I was kind of hopping around different cafes and just kind of enjoying studying and drinking coffee and all those things. And then chatted to you guys. But I think I just got to a point where I really just wanted to I think there was 2 parts. It was, yes, I wanted to work in a coffee shop, but I also wanted to bring something specific to Somerset West because I saw that there was a lack, there was a lack of people who actually tried. I felt like there was no real effort in a lot of other places, even in big chains like Woolworths and things like that. The inconsistency is crazy. Till this day, Josh and I went to Woolworths the other morning, and you'll ask for something specific, like let's say a flat white, and it will come, you can see it's super frothy. You can see it's been sitting for long on the bar. So there's just things like that I think really stirred up the idea and the passion to do something. But between being a barista and I think owning my own space, again, twofold. I think my dad was always keen to kind of get me to learn something about life and business and finances and those kinds of things. So when I said, I would like to go work for a coffee shop, he was kind of like, well, listen, we've saved up some cash. Don't you want to do your own thing?
Oh, nice.
So that was quite cool. That was, So I was a little bit like nervous in the beginning. But after a lot of time, kind of just, again, in the industry in South Africa, and I guess it depends on where you are, but I feel like you're not going to get paid a huge amount of cash being a barista. So when my dad said that and offered that opportunity, I thought, well, great. So kind of just took the plunge and went for it. And then what happened was, so I took over a shop that already existed, Basile, as you know. It was actually through a mutual friend. So I attended Hillsong in Somerset West, and the owner of the shop was a part of the congregation there, and we kind of knew each other for a couple of years. And they are mainly a confectionery company, and they had kind of launched that space to be more of a platform for their baked goods rather than for coffee. And so I think they had a tough time through COVID because they launched just before, and then they kind of realized, look, this is not what we need to promote our product, you know? So we got into conversations, and I was telling him, you know, this is what I'm interested in doing, and how should I begin? Because I actually went to him for advice. How should I start? Because they had done it, you know? And we just got the conversation going, and literally within 3 months, it was a handover. I took over the shop, ran it under Basle's name for a couple of months just to kind of give myself breathing room. And then over December, renovated and changed the name and the menu and all those things. So yeah, it was quite a journey, but it almost kind of feels like a bit of a blur because everything happened so quick, you know. But I think I've to really circle back. I talk a lot. To really circle back, I think there's very few things in life I'm super passionate about. So when I fell in love with coffee, I was like, okay, this is what I've got to do.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. When did you say that it was the church in Australia that you were serving at that cared about weighing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Church.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not sure if I heard that right.
No. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's crazy.
So I went across Australia. We're studying at Hillsong College, and they have a massive cafe, but they also have about 6 coffee carts around the church. Okay, on Sunday they sell. I think they probably sell about 3,000 cups of coffee on a weekend.
Yes.
Okay, and but it's just, I think the coffee culture in Australia has got such a high standard that people would probably not drink coffee at the church if it wasn't there, and then just go somewhere afterwards. So they wanted to, and I think Hillsong everything's about like doing everything to the best of their capability, and so they were really keen to kind of to have it as because it was also open throughout the week. So random people that just lived in the area would come to the cafe literally on the side of the church and join. So, but yeah, the great thing about Oz and the coffee culture there is like, I feel like no matter where you go, everything was set. So everybody weighed coffee. The yield was weighed. I
can't even imagine that.
Yeah, like if you, the most irritating thing for me, and not to be judgmental, but just, I feel like here in Somerset, if I go to Woolworths or if I go to Ground Central, if I go wherever I go, a flat white is different. A cappuccino is different. It comes in different size cups. It comes with different textured foam or textured milk. So that was always a frustrating thing for me, because you would go somewhere, enjoy a cup of coffee, go back, and it could also be different. So the inconsistency, same place, but also between the places. Whereas in Oz, it was all very one way. You knew that you were going to get a cortado with a certain amount of milk cup, you know, all those kinds of things. So it was really intriguing. So when I came back, it was odd. And I think that's what also sparked the passion. Was like, yeah, are people this serious about coffee in South Africa? Obviously, again, hadn't touched Cape Town as much. So yeah, it was interesting.
That's crazy, man. A big thing I wanted to touch on, just, you know, even from our experience, but with you, how was the difference kind of between, you know, the dream of opening, you know, a cafe and getting to do it right and provide this for Somerset West and do things differently, and then versus the reality of owning a business, you know, running staff and ingredients sitting in the fridge, you know, I just want to kind of hear your difference, you know, the reality versus kind of the dream that we're all sold.
Yeah. I think the expectation is obviously that my passion and my drive will kind of take it and make it work, sort of a thing. And I think it's a good thing to have and a good place to start. But it definitely wasn't my expectation of where or what I thought it would be to what it really was not, I wouldn't say way off, but really different. And I think I often say to people who ask me this question as well, is there's a difference between loving coffee and loving hospitality, running a business and just being passionate about something, right? And luckily through the journey, I realized I actually quite enjoyed the managing of it. I enjoyed managing of staff and teaching and growing and learning with them as well and all those kinds of things. So that was great. But yeah, the the difference was quite crazy. So you think it's going to be this dream where you get to come in at any time you want as the boss and kind of sit there with your laptop and get me a coffee and, you know, Dean. So I'd often just shout things, and when I got a moment to live that fantasy, I would. But I think you think it's going to be very easy, relaxed, and you kind of say, okay, I just need to sell a certain amount of cups of coffee, and that's it, I'm sorted. But there's so many things that you don't take into consideration. And so I had never run a business before. I had never been in a managerial position before. So I lacked the expertise of everything, of let's say running finances, accounting side of things. I lacked the expertise with regards to managing people, managing staff. Especially, I was 25 when I took over at Basle, now Soteria. And so two or three members of my staff were older than me, and one lady by a good decade. So coming in as a young guy who doesn't really know what he's doing, these people have been in this business, they've been running this shop. It was a little intimidating and quite tough, and so I had to find my feet very quickly. I had to learn to be confrontational quite quickly. Not confrontational, but learn to say what I wanted to say without having fear of what they might be thinking, So I think that was quite a big battle for me. And then, stock, like things like stock take, making sure that fresh goods, things are fresh, like making sure that you constantly have things in stock was always, so your mind is all over the place. You're constantly thinking about your customers and you're constantly thinking about your furniture and is everything in the right condition? Is everything great? Then you're constantly thinking about your staff. Are they okay? If someone calls in sick, well, then there's an issue. So the last thing I actually thought about most days was coffee. I actually didn't really get to do the thing that I thought I would do. So I think that's the biggest split is you think you're going to go in there, be behind the coffee machine, make great coffee, have good conversations, make some money while you're doing it, and that's it. But it's just not. So, the toughest thing that I dealt with specifically with Soteria was it was in a business park. And so it was quite, you have a captive audience, but it's also quite tough because you don't know, there's going to be big fluctuations in busy days to quiet days. And so that was quite tough. So you're constantly trying to think of new ways to get people through the door, trying to do specials. And then you're having this fight with the passion of coffee. Okay, do I put my coffee on special or do I not? And how do I mesh those two things together to have a profitable business, but still have coffee at the forefront and not taking flack for it? So I think that was tough. That was really, really tough. So I learned a lot in the first 6 months. I felt like I was drowning for the first, I would say 2-3 months. Then I just got my head above water. And then I'd say by month 6, I felt like I had quite a good steady hand over it. But yeah, overall, definitely big difference between being a barista, being passionate about coffee and running a business. It's just not the same. It's just definitely not the same thing.
Awesome, man. With that being said, do you think that there would be an advantage, just a quick one, do you think that there would be an advantage to maybe first trying to, maybe work either as a barista or as a, cafe manager for a while before opening your own thing? Or do you think, that learning in 6 months was kind of good as is? Like if you could go back, do you think you would first try to get a bit more experience, maybe managing a cafe or?
You definitely. I think for my specific situation, if someone else finds himself in that situation, or if they just take the plunge, it's not a bad thing because you are now forced to learn as quickly as possible and you do everything. I was spending evenings trying to learn of how to do recipe breakdowns and costings, which I'd never done before in my life. Hours, this is bad. I don't even know how to use Excel. So in 6 months, I'm now an Excel guru, right? Nice. So to learn, so anyway, so yes, if you take the plunge, if you're really in that position, then you will learn very quickly and you're forced to. But I would suggest anybody who wants to have their own coffee shop one day or manage a shop should definitely go work in a coffee shop. I think for 2 main reasons. One, so that when you do launch it, obviously you got that experience. You know what not to do, the things that you should look out for, and the things that might kind of halt your progress. But secondly, to find out if you actually love coffee, if you actually love working in that kind of industry, if you actually like hospitality. Because I think there's, again, like I said, there's a difference between a guy at home buying a bag of beans every week from a different roaster who's got all his little tools and is playing around and trying to make the best shot and all those kinds of things, to working having to deal with customers, dealing with complaints, dealing with staff, like your colleagues, the long hours on your feet. The passion does sometimes get drawn out when it's busy and you're just pumping out coffees. you're not actually necessarily enjoying, you're just in this robotic mode of I'm pumping out coffees. So I think it is very important for someone to probably go and work and just see those two things. See, do I like this? Because you will know very quickly. Does it feed you or does it actually steal from you? I think it's one of those two ways. So at least, because there's probably people out there again who go, and I was in that situation, luckily I did enjoy it. But it's like, oh, I love coffee. I'm super passionate about it. I can't really imagine myself maybe, or not imagine myself doing anything else, but I'm not very passionate about anything else. Let me go for it. And then they do it and then they realize, sure. And then I actually met a guy once who came into my cafe and he knew a lot about coffee. And so we started chatting and I said, do you own your own shop? And he laughed almost in like I want to say like a mocking way. And he was like, no, he'll never do that again. He had one in Belleville and he'll never do it again.
Oh.
So I think there are people who find themselves in that situation.
Yeah, I think there's so much value in what you shared, genuine, like for those listening, maybe in between and thinking about it, because I think not enough of us hear about the true reality of running a cafe. Even in my side, we've obviously had the chance to open several cafes either for ourselves or to help other people and kind of run that and get it started. And the reality is always so different, right? Like just like what you mentioned is such a good point. We spend so much time fantasizing, walking in, enjoying the coffee, but the reality is there's so much to learn. A lot more of your time is spent and it's very hard to switch off because, the next day you have things to do. And I think I'm happy that you mentioned that because it is something that people genuinely need to consider because it is the reality, Now just going, kind of in between, obviously you ended up selling Soteria.
Yes.
And not too long after, I believe within just a couple months, Republique was then opened in Stellenbosch.
Yes, yeah.
What was that kind of journey, just briefly? And
sure.
And also you obviously now are co-owner. So maybe you can just touch on that a little bit and kind of the differences between the two.
Sure. A lot happened, so I'll try to keep it very brief. So I had Soteria for about a year and then actually started to feel a little bit, funnily enough, capped. I felt like I had learned and grown so much and was forced to, that eventually got to a point where I was like, I actually wanted more. I wanted more foot traffic. I wanted to be able to experiment more. So there was this kind of, I wasn't content. And so I ended up speaking to our roaster, not to our roaster, but to Cedar. I actually spoke to Winston and he mentioned to me that there was a guy who had approached them who wanted to potentially start something up with them. And this was a couple of months before we were having this conversation. And he said, do you want me to get in contact with him and just see if he's still kind of keen on doing something? And I said, sure, why not? And I kind of just brushed it off. I didn't think much would come from it. I've been in those kinds of situations before, So it was just kind of like, well, if something comes, great. And I think about a month went by and then suddenly I got a message from this guy. And he said to me, he's, got your number from Winston. Can he come and see me? And so I said, yeah, please come to the cafe, see what we do here. Let's have a chat. So he came across, had a chat. Long story short, he had first option of a place in Stellenbosch. And that kind of really tickled my ear because although Stellenbosch is not necessarily a specialty coffee hub, there is a lot of promise, or what's the word for it? Potential. There's a lot of potential in that town. There's so many students, and there is definitely, the land is fertile. You can really grow with them. And as you're growing and learning, and that was kind of my idea, as I'm growing and learning, then I'll hopefully take them on the journey too. So Stellenbosch was an intriguing option for me. And so we had a good conversation that day. And then he said to me, look, give it some thought. I'll think about it my side too. He's still waiting on that option to kind of be finalized. He'll get back to me. And then I literally think 3 months went by. And then in July, he reached out to me. So that was, probably about March, April, around there, the first conversation. And then in July, he reached out to me. And then from there, we had 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings. Everything just kind of progressed really, really quickly. And his statement to me, or question to me, was basically, either you can come and manage this shop and still own your shop and let it run, or you can sell it and invest and be a co-owner with me in this space. And so I had this fear that I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't call myself a micromanager, but I had a fear that if I didn't know if I could be willing to let someone else run Soteria in the way that I wanted it to be run, or kind of just, I thought it would become stagnant. And so I decided to sell it and then move on and invest in Republique. So it all happened so quickly. I mean, that was July, by 31st of August, it was sold. So one of the guys that I worked with at Soteria, one of his friends had approached me also a couple of months before wanting to start something in coffee. And so I just reached out to him and said, hey, well, look, I'm looking to sell. Do you want to buy? And he took it over eventually. So yeah, within a couple of months. And then it took us from September till November 10th, we launched. So in 3 months, it was chaos, but we launched it. So it was great. Yeah.
It's amazing that it was able to work out so smoothly, and
yeah,
not that it was maybe the easiest thing, but just the timing of everything is amazing.
The timing. I mean, I remember when the whole thing happened. I'm quite nonchalant within my life. Like I have vision, but I also don't try to hold things too tightly, or at least I perceive myself to be like that. And so when this opportunity came, I was just praying, and I was just like, Lord, if this is something that you have sort of in my path to do, then I'm not going to be anxious. I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to happen. It's going to come to. And because I think in the past, even with taking over Soteria, I was just so anxious. Is things going to work out? Is it going to be a decent price? All those kinds of things. And I worked up all the stress and for actually nothing. So it was, like you said, things just literally went just straight through, and November 10th we were there. So it was quite an experience.
And I mean, you guys, I'm pretty sure it's maybe not wrong, but I think that you guys are one of the most expensive, coffee bars in all of Stellenbosch. Maybe even the Winelands, specifically with the mod bar. Right. That was I think a shock to everyone.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say that you guys were the first to have it. I know that pretty shortly after, obviously, Espresso Lab also has. Or were you guys truly the first in South Africa to have mod bar installed?
Yeah, interesting question. I'll plead the fifth, as Americans would say.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. No, I believe so. There was a lot of conversations about who was going to get it first. So I think there was I want to say yes, because the only two mod bars that Lamazaka had told us that were purchased that were on their way to South Africa was for us and for Espresso Lab. And we definitely got it before them. When I spoke to St. John about it, to the Lamazaka rep, he mentioned to me, it was either him or someone else on the team, that we would be the first people to get it. But when the tech guys came, or the installation guys came to check out the space, he said to me, the guy who was heading the app said, no, they're putting one in Val de Vie. I said, Val de Vie? Okay. And then a couple of weeks went by and I spoke to St. John, and St. John was like, no, that's not a mod bar. That's something completely else. So I don't know. You would think he would know. So it's a bit shady. That's kind of why I said I'd plead the fifth, because I don't want people to go, oh, and everybody freaks out that I'm not telling the truth here. But in terms of Espresso Lab, first one in town, yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's crazy. For those listening who don't know what a mod bar is, you need to go whip out your phones and Google some pictures, or go to Republique's Instagram.
Yeah, there you go.
Super beautiful. Just the fact that you can actually have those customer interactions and stuff. It's it's just really amazing. Aesthetically, practically everything.
No, it's a great piece of equipment. I think I won't spend too much time on this, but it was actually Winston who kind of gave us the idea, of course.
Wow.
and he kind of jokingly said it. And then the other investor, Willem, he kind of said, what's a mod bar? And then we went down this rabbit hole and pictures and all those things. And I think also launching in Stellies, we wanted to, Stellies is saturated. Coffee shops, restaurants, all those kinds of things. And so we wanted to do something different, and we wanted to launch with a bang. And we did that in different ways in terms of, genuinely, I think, the first specialty coffee shop in Stellies. We're the only coffee shop in Stellies that has a brew bar, a slow bar. So that was kind of the main thing for me. But I also thought that it's a student town. People get wowed by these kinds of things. And so if we had the capital to do it, then why not? You know, it would bring good sort of news and reputation to us. So why not? So, but trust me, it wasn't an easy decision. We spent a really long time. So it's not just me and Willem as investors. There's two other guys, and we were back and forth because a lot of them travel a lot overseas, and so over emails we were back and forth. What do we do? And eventually, I was like, I'm just going to write out a long email with the 3 machines that we could look at, and I'm going to go pros and cons with both. And then at the end, I'm just going to say, this is what I think we should do. And then kind of 2 things. So if this is a great piece of equipment and it'll do everything that we want it to do, but with the kind of vision that we have to make a bang, this would probably make more sense. And the price difference, so we got a really good deal. I think we got a really good deal. The company that sourced it for us wasn't VAT registered, so we got 15% off on that. But also La Mazaka gave us a discount. And they said they were going to give us a discount. They did. And then I even reached out to Winston to chat to St. John to see if we could get something further, because we were going to be the first ones. And then I kind of opened up the conversation of, if La Mazaka wants to come and host events here, or people want to come and, whatever, then please, So we ended up probably spending, I wouldn't even say 15, 20% more than what a 3-group red linear PB would cost.
Wow. Yeah, for those who don't know, maybe
Google the linear PB.
just go do some research and see that, for that type of discount is amazing. It's really cool that they're willing to do that. Obviously touching on that, your desire for the cafe and everything, recently in early May, Monique Bennett obviously wrote an amazing blog about you guys, highlighting Republique in Stellenbosch, talking about your famous matcha and toasties, which I think the matcha is a podcast in itself. But she also covered kind of the French sort of style. Obviously, I was very surprised, because I think everyone nowadays is kind of going very modern, white plants, some wood. And so kind of what was the take on that very unique style? And the second part that she mentioned there is that you really wanted to focus, even through the mural, to be on coffee farmers and for that to be at the forefront of your customers' minds.
Yeah.
So if you could just explain what that actually means and why the heck should people care about coffee farmers?
Sure. That conversation could be a whole podcast on its own. So I don't want to go into so much detail about that, but I'll definitely touch on it. Okay, so Monique is actually, funnily enough, Monique is just, she's really awesome. She's a customer that came in one day, not even that long ago, I'd say 2 months ago. And it was early morning. I think her and her friend were the first ones into the cafe. And she was taken away about the wide bar, and then also saw all our setup with the slow bar. And so we started talking about that and about single origins, and you could see she loved coffee. She was a bit of a fanatic around it. And she was, I think, just kind of pumped that there was now a place that she could dive in a little bit more and learn a bit more. So since then, she has, I want to say she's almost there every day. And she kind of took this on her own to write this article. So shout out to her. She's really awesome. Yeah, so we are, okay, a little bit of our history. So we didn't want to just plant a cafe out of the blue. Kind of just, what I mean is without a reason or without a purpose or a foundation or a meaning behind what we're doing. So we had many conversations about, okay, what is going to be our drive? And we are very much coffee forward, and that's why we don't have a kitchen, okay? So we want to push that as much as we can. But we also thought, okay, but what about Stellenbosch? What about Stellenbosch, or what history in Stellenbosch can we kind of lean on or kind of draw from? And one of the investors in our meeting mentioned something. I don't know where his mind went and how he got this, but he mentioned the Huguenots. So the Huguenots, for any listeners who don't know, were 16th century Protestants that were kind of exiled, chased out of Europe, because the Catholic Church was attacking them and kind of getting them out, because claiming that they were teaching heresy. And so a lot of them from actually south of Holland, but also mainly from France as well, left and, kind of dropped off all over the place. But a lot of them ended in Franschhoek and in the Stellenbosch area. And actually, that is one of the biggest reasons why we have wine today in the country. So they were actually known as earth workers. They came with a lot of their expertise of they were very simple people in France as well. So they were very simple people. They were farmers, mostly farmers. And so they worked a lot of the land. And so when they came and they landed in Franschhoek, that was kind of the thing that they leaned on, the thing that they knew. And so that's why we have a lot of beautiful, I would say a big reason why we have a lot of wine farms in the area. And so talking about that, we kind of thought, well, we want to be a place that every bit of, and we're getting there. I don't want to claim that we're there. I think, again, it's that thing of we grow with our customer. I think that's a big thing for me. But we want our produce to be locally sourced. We want it to be helping out this area, and we want it to be as sustainable, that word's thrown around a lot, but as sustainable and ethically and fair trade, not just with coffee, but with everything, you know? So we really wanted to emulate that with the Huguenots. And so just because they were from, a majority of them were from France, we thought, well, why don't we bring a French flair into the cafe? And so the mural actually on the back wall, there's a couple of elements on there, but there's a big part on the right-hand side that's a woman with an ox. And that's actually a picture of an old stamp that they would put on envelopes from the Huguenot time when they landed here. So it's not just kind of emphasizing the Huguenots and the French flair, but also the earth worker, right? The hard worker, where that kind of came from. So we drew a lot from that. That's where we got the inspiration from the French. Also a lot of vision and mission for us in terms of sourcing things locally and ethically. And I think that drive was sort of pushed through the wanting to ethically source or have our coffee that we are serving being ethically sourced. So kind of menging the two together. So that's how we got the French flair and all of those things in. So our vision is to really make a stamp in Stellies with specialty coffee, but supporting community. We really want to be there with the community in terms of what we purchase, but also then with the way that we run the shop. So having the slow bar, even the mod bar, the interaction, the conversations, the bookshelf that we have in the back there, take one book, bring one back, right? There's games there. Everything we're trying to do is trying to create a community of, trying to create a community and local support. So that's kind of our vision and mission there. And then I think with a coffee farmer, we're not roasters. So, we're not bringing in the coffee or the ones receiving it. I really trust with the relationship that we have with Cedar that they are doing that. And I know that's their heart too. They also are not all about sort of making posts about it and we do this and we do that, because they want to make sure that they can get to a point where they are doing it as wholeheartedly and as properly as they can. And I know that is their vision and mission. So just through that relationship and that understanding, we brought them on board with us. So I trust that he does that. But with the coffee farmer, it's a passion of mine. So I come from a generation of farmers. My dad, his dad's dad were all farmers and different, citrus and bananas and all kinds of different things. And so I kind of broke the curve a little bit, but when I started to find out what coffee was and that it's a cherry and it's a fruit and everything that was going on, I did a lot more digging. And so for me, I have a heart for farmers in general. And seeing how also, I mean, my dad does relatively well now, but his fathers before him really struggled. I think there can be a great disparity in that industry. So that tied in with then doing research with the coffee and understanding. I read once in the London Times, this was a couple of years ago, apparently, I think a cappuccino costs about £5.90. I think the farmer gets 5 pence, which is basically 10%. Then I did more digging, and I think it's the International Trade Center wrote an article and confirmed that it was literally 10% of, I think it was a $4 in America, $4 for a flat white, 10% of that goes to the farmer. So that was just interesting to me and going, well, most of the work is done there, is on the land. 125 million people depend on that. That's their livelihood, on coffee farming and getting that out and exporting that. So when you think of the lives and the families, and a lot of coffee farms are generationally passed down, family passed down. So when you hear what they're making and then how many livelihoods are based on it and knowing that they don't make a lot of cash, and so how is it sustainable for them? How do they continue? A lot of them have to have co-ops with other farms just to get it to a washing station, just to get the coffee to washing stations. So it's very difficult. And so for me, with my passion and coming from a line of farmers, then to finding out my passion for coffee and finding out what's happening with them, I just wanted in my conversation. So it's not so much that we're slapping it on Republique. It's I want the baristas and my team to know that this is an important thing for us as a vision and a mission, and that we must do what we can to educate people about that. So we don't have to get into the whole fair trade and talk about sustainability and get really into all the really geeking out about it, but just a broad understanding. Literally just what I said, like telling a customer, do you know 10% of what this is goes to the farmer? And just having them understand that, it does two things. One, you open up their mind and their conscience to it, and you don't know where that could lead with them. And then the second thing is, by us bringing in different types of coffee, having that educational process, getting them to understand that coffee can be more than a bitter black caffeine kick, that there's actually so much to it, then they understand why they're paying what they're paying. Then perhaps we can go with that, and then the education, we can go, listen, prices are going to rise, and we're going to try to be as clear as possible that you can see that for us, it's to support them, not that we're trying to fill our pockets. So I think that's the ultimate goal. How we'll achieve that, especially the clarity, I don't know. We're still thinking about that, but it is a big part for us, and we want to show grace and kindness and really be the salt and the light of the earth as we can. I don't know if I answered that question.
No, absolutely. I think that was very insightful. I didn't know about that group either coming down. But it is, like you said, I think it's such a big topic, and we're definitely going to have some people on the show that maybe, are able to work directly with farmers and kind of give their experience and things, because I think it is so important for us to know and remember that coffee is not just expensive because it's expensive, and how little goes back. And I think your numbers are quite generous. I think a lot of the big commercial space, not specialty coffee, I think those numbers are a lot more scary and a lot lower going back to the farmer.
Yeah.
And definitely something to chat about. But yeah, thanks so much for that. Like so much value in that. So much food for thought.
Yeah.
I think just one thing maybe to end off on, and just to help people, if for those listeners who are thinking about opening a cafe, maybe opening their own thing, maybe already working, but wanting to branch out. Since you've done both, you've opened one by yourself, and now you've opened one with kind of business partners. I know that not everyone has the opportunity to choose.
Sure.
But if you could choose between the two, maybe you just want to touch on some pros and cons of each, and just, last little bit of advice for someone who's kind of in that limbo and trying to decide.
Yeah, sure. Well, like you said, not everybody's going to have the option, but if you do, originally my thinking was I want to do it on my own, because then I have full control. And then 3 months in, I was like, sure, it actually would have been nice to carry the burden with someone else, or have someone else carry the burden with me. And I think like you said, there are pros and cons to both. I think the ultimate goal was to find a good balance. So not having too many people involved, maybe just 2, maximum 3 people. And then having those people skilled in different areas that they focus on, But so what I would say is, running things on my own, it was burdensome. You're going to sleep at night, your staff goes home, they're fine, they're getting their salary at the end of the month, and you're going home and thinking, how do I make more money? How do I get people more invested in coffee? How do I teach them and educate them about these things? How do I get more foot traffic? All those things. You're constantly worrying. Are we going to make it through this month? And so that is tough. And also, you might not have all the skills. I had almost none. And so that's the tough part. The good part about having it on your own, almost like I did touch on, is you have full control over the vision and the mission, where you want things to go, how you want things to look, what you want people to perceive your shop and to be, or what it is, and yourself as well, what actually matters to you as the owner. What was nice is also I worked in my own cafe, and I think that made a big difference for customers as well, being there. So all those things are good things. Yeah, I would say those are probably mainly the pros, is you can really guide the business in the way that you want it to do. But it is, overall, it's quite tough. On the other hand, now with Republique, I had a bit of relief almost going into it, like, great, I don't have to worry about this on my own. There's different people with different skill sets, all those kinds of things. And so that was exciting. But you very quickly learn, you get to a point where, actually one of my friends calls it analysis paralysis. So there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and you start to analyze everything over and over, and everybody wants to share their point, and you become paralyzed. You don't move, you don't make decisions, and you don't actually know where you're going. And so I felt that a little bit. And so it is quite a tough thing there, trying to manage that and manage everybody's expectations of what they want. So we have a general vision and mission and what we're trying to achieve, but there's so many different dynamics and things to think about in a cafe. And the broad one that most people care about is what it looks like. And for me, I got to a point where the cafe isn't necessarily what I wanted it to look like. I love the French flair and I love the reason behind it, but it's not necessarily my style or what I would have done. But then again, I think it actually works really well. Like you said, a lot of cafes are going in this more minimalistic. But I ended up saying to them, guys, I'm happy. I kind of left it to a couple of other investors and to the interior designers, and I went, but let me focus on the coffee bar. Let that be mine. I'll do that. The mural, I love that. Let's get that up there, but let me focus on this thing. So there's a lot of give and take. You have to learn to give and take. You're going to have to know that you can't just make decisions overnight. Like, for instance, small things that was super frustrating working in the first couple of months was I managed the shop there. I managed the shop there for the first 6 months. So you see things that aren't working, things that aren't selling, maybe pricing that is completely off, maybe even the flow of the shop, of the bar, of the shop, where furniture is, all those kinds of things. And you can't just go and change it. You can't just take it off the menu. You can't just add something. You can't just change the cost to it. You've got to now go through many different hands of different people. You've got to chat to different people about that, and then hopefully that you come to a unanimous agreement over it, you know? So that's tough. So yes, pros, carry the burden with you. You've got people with different skill sets. They help you drive it. Hopefully they're just as invested and love coffee and all those things as much as you do. And then you also have, again, further investment for growth, maybe as time goes on. The cons, you can't just change things, like seeing things that aren't working. You can't just change it overnight. There's a lot of analysis paralysis. People have different vision and mission, like different understandings of where they want things to go. And so there's a constant battle of learning to not get frustrated, to give and take, and then to be able to be confrontational. That was something I learned I had to learn very quickly. Is not to just, be agitated and angry and fight your point across, but to how to have healthy, constructive confrontation is a big thing. And you're going to face that every day. Every day there's going to be something that you're going to talk about. Every day someone wants to do something. Every day we're just working behind the bar, because I work behind the bar, different investors coming in, we should try this, we should do this. Even customers giving you different ideas and all those things. So it's a lot. And now you're trying to manage all of that at once. So it's quite a bit. I think the other dynamic is obviously Soteria I had taken over. So if I can touch on briefly, if you have the opportunity to take over a business already or start something fresh, if you're new to it, I love the fact that I took something over, because you've got more, there's more leeway. Things are running. I was very lucky. The staff stayed on. The menu was there. The relationships with the suppliers and the roaster was there. It was basically a turnkey. There were things that I had to change, and the business wasn't doing as well. And coming in there, I had to change some things. But a lot of aspects I didn't have to worry about. And so it gives you room to grow and to learn, and then you can take your time rather than flip. I've got to make this all happen. So in those 3 months before we launched, I was wearing every hat. I was project manager. I was dealing with the suppliers. I was almost an interior designer, trying to figure out how's this thing going to look like. I was hiring staff. I was sending us for trainings. I was doing costings, day in and day out costings. So there's a lot to do and a lot to think about. And we were so eager to launch that we just tried to force everything super quickly. But in the end, it worked out well. But yeah, for any listeners who are thinking about the tour, have the opportunity, if you can, take over something. Another aspect, because it was at first a great thing and then it kept me in the end, but being in the business park, great, because you have a captive audience, you can build relationship. People can't necessarily go anywhere else. So you have room to make mistakes and those kinds of things. Whereas if you plant something in Stellies, there's so many options. If you're not on par, you're not on par, and people are going to go somewhere else. It just is what it is, I suppose. Yeah.
Amazing, man. I think that you've really given people listening so much value. I think that you give them so much to think about, and kind of, it's so cool that you have experience on all these different sides, where most of us kind of go one way, and that's kind of the way we stick. So I think, so much value in that for everyone listening and thinking about starting something. I love that you brought tribute back to the farmers and the hard workers, your fathers and everyone before, the coffee farmers, and kind of just, the difficulty and reality behind business and also the joys and fun times. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah, thanks, Omar.
Maybe just one quick thing. What is one tip to help people brew better?
To help people brew better. Consistency. Do everything. Be specific about what you do. Don't be nonchalant about it. Be very specific with everything that you do within the whole process of the coffee, with brewing coffee. And there's joy in that. You can actually take a lot of joy in it. But if you want to brew better coffee, good coffee, make sure you got good coffee. Make sure you're weighing everything. And I think don't be afraid to try different things, like to experiment. Really, have some fun with that. So, I think that would be my tips.
Nice. Tim, thank you so much for joining. It's been such a big privilege to be a part of the journey and to have you here as well. And we look forward to having you back soon again.
Perfect. Thanks, Mario. Appreciate it.
Thanks. And then quickly, where can people find you and your cafe?
Yes. Our cafe is 19 Ndringa in Stellies, heart of Stellies. So you guys, please pop in. It would be wonderful to see you guys and have you guys there. We are also on Instagram. You guys can find us at Republique_Stellies. We do a lot of different content and a lot of funny videos, which tends to get a lot of people interested as well. And like I mentioned to Romero earlier, we also got a slow bar. So please, if you want to experience something, try something. If you want to come and talk to us about recipes you're trying at home, what different types of coffees to use, what tools to use, where to source different types of these equipment, please come and talk to us. Our baristas are more than happy to spend some time with you. It'd be really great to have you there.